Okay, so that's the recording started. So, good evening, dear hearts, and welcome to another Inner Dance show with me, Caroline. And this evening, I have the honour and the pleasure of introducing a very dear friend and local practitioner to me, Alison Strandberg. And Alison is a family constellation practitioner, a cacao facilitator, and an intuitive author of the phenomenal book A Songbird Whose Name is Love. And these are just a few of the many practices that Alison works with. But Alison, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for inviting me. It's very exciting and quite nervous as well, given that this is live, but I'm really pleased to be here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel that this is still very much beyond my usual comfort zone. So I'm with you with the nervousness. So I really appreciate your courage to be here. And so we're both trying something new.
Thank
And
you.
And I have to say, I remember the first time we met, and I'd heard of you and I've heard of the great work that you did, but I was at a local sort of business women's fair, and you were offering numerology sessions. And I just remember making eye contact with you and feeling like I'd known you for a lifetime already. And yeah, I just wanted to name that there's something about you that was deeply familiar to me. And even though
I
we don't
felt the
met.
same. I felt the same. It
Mm,
was a meeting of souls again. It felt
yeah.
very special. And it feels very special each time we meet. So it's lovely to be able to share a space together now, even though we're not physically together. It feels really powerful. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Alison, I don't know very much about, family constellation work, and I've had the pleasure of attending a couple of your cacao sessions, but maybe you could just tell us, imagining that we don't really know anything about it, just what that is
Mhm.
and how you and your journey so far.
Okay. So I've been working with family constellations for many years now. I started working with my teacher and dear friend, Nikki Mackay, and worked with her individually and within constellation workshops in groups. And I became so fascinated by it because it had helped me so much. I really wanted to train. And so I trained with her. Nikki herself trained with Bert Hellinger, who actually is the founder of family constellation therapy. And it's an unusual, it's a very difficult therapy to describe. And often, if when a client asks me what's going to happen, it's quite difficult to actually say. But if I meet you in person, or in a constellation group in person, I will use mats or pieces of paper. And what we do is we use these mats as representatives of people who you might like to bring in. If you have some kind of problem or issue that doesn't seem to be resolving itself,
Hmm.
often that can be something that is linked to a past story of an ancestor, somebody who has a voice that hasn't been heard, if you like. And as we bring those spaces into the constellation, we use phrases, and we use those phrases, what we place the mats where we feel comfortable. So, for example, if you were bringing in someone that you had a difficult relationship with, you would place them slightly further away. And if it
Okay.
was someone you were very close to, you would place them close by. And then the constellation develops from there, and we use specific phrases to release the energy. And what we're actually trying to achieve is to find a place of belonging, because everybody has a right to belong. We all come here to this earth and have a special place. But if there's something's happened in your life, whether it be through grief or whether it be through shame or blame, there can be all sorts of things. We sometimes leave our stories entangled with those who come after us. And so, family constellation therapy is working towards disentangling our story with the story of somebody who has lived before us. And I like to see it as everybody comes to earth and eventually stands on the earth. And sometimes, if we haven't completed what we would like to complete and we've left regrets or sorrows behind us, I imagine that person is hovering over their footprints. And when you can bring some kind of acknowledgement, some kind of honoring of this person's having lived, I imagine them stepping into their footprints and taking their place again on the earth so that they can belong.
Wow,
So,
that's beautiful. What a striking image that you leave me with there, Alison. And something about supporting some. It's almost like you're being in service to the ancestors. Is that right? You're supporting
yeah,
them into a place of healing and integration.
yes, and not only the ancestors, because as you are acknowledging their stories, you
Yes,
are releasing that part of you that is holding that story, and in that way you release yourself, but also you release that flow down
yes,
towards the descendants. So that's how it works. That's why it's so amazing, because you're working to clear
hmm,
your energy so that then it can flow with ease
yeah.
forwards.
So there's something for me about time and how
Mm-hmm.
you're working with time, with
Mm-hmm.
past, present, future as one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's an element of that. That's just what it sounds like. That
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes, it is. It is. It's a flow. And I think
yeah,
when you step into what we call the field, you could be stepping into anywhere where anyone has lived, really.
yeah,
Sometimes in constellation work, you can go very, very far back. And other times it can be, close. It can be a sibling or, mother, father, whatever. But it's just a fascinating experience to see what comes up. When I work on Zoom as well. And when I work with somebody on Zoom, they work in their own inner world. So I will ask them to close their eyes, and they will then visualize where the
hmm,
spaces come in, and where they are, and how it feels. Because before you actually use a phrase, it's how does it feel when that person comes in? How
yes,
does it feel? What happens within you? And when you're working within group constellations, it's quite amazing. I remember when before I had started training, and I remember one specific workshop, and anger was in there. And I remember I was representing somebody. I can't even remember the story now because it was so quite frightening at the time. And the person I was addressing got so angry, I wanted to jump out the window,
right,
because you are becoming that space, that representative space. It's quite fascinating and very, very moving at times as well.
yeah.
So
I'm imagining it takes such courage for actually everybody involved
mhm,
to step into those spaces and to embody
yeah,
these different parts, and how important it is for you as a practitioner to create a safe container to work with the unknown.
that's so important. It is very, very important. And a lot of it is incredibly intuitive.
Yeah.
We obviously train and know what we're working with, but a lot of the time it can be very intuitive. And you're not absolutely sure where you're going. And that's what I find so fascinating about every constellation, is that you think you might be heading off in one direction,
Hmm.
and that's not where it goes. It
Yeah.
flows by itself.
Yeah.
Mm.
So again, there's something about you as the journey woman and your capacity to work without a map. And
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yes, it is. I think it's when I'm thinking back on it, I thought, how on earth am I ever going to be able to work like this myself?
Uh-huh.
Um, and I think the biggest thing is trust. And I think trust is something that has come through for me many times in all different areas of the work that I've been doing over the years is absolute sheer trust. Um, and that trust has always led me to the right places. I'm with you now here because I know I can trust you, and I
Yeah.
trust that this is the right space to be right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'm imagining then that that's what's also being restored, because when we don't embody a sense of belonging, then there's not a real trust that we're meant
Uh,
to be here, that we can rely upon the universe to have our best intentions at heart. And
mhm. Yes, yes, that's true. That's very true. Um, but it's something that you can't learn. You just you have to trust that it is there, that it's within you.
yeah, so there's something about it's a knowing, isn't it, that it really is
Mhm.
an embodied sensation
Yes,
rather than
yes,
something that you can understand logically.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And
So
there is a lot of logic within the work that we do, but I think it's coupled with this deeply intuitive process that you can sense what the person
yeah,
that you're representing feels, which is
yes,
quite amazing at times, and
yeah,
can be quite traumatic at times, but such an amazing way to be able to help to heal.
yeah. It sounds life changing, and I'm curious. How long does a session last?
It's usually an hour. I usually leave a quarter of an hour afterwards, just because you never want to leave somebody in a space
Yeah,
where they are still feeling confused or upset. But it's quite fascinating how, and I've noticed this in other ways of working as well, that you almost envisage that hour and a quarter, that
hmm,
by that time the person will be in a space. And it, without fail, it works. You know, there'll be some way, it might
yeah,
not be absolutely finished, but there will be a place where it can be held so that
yes,
the
yeah,
person can then leave without feeling lost, because you never want that. You
no,
never want that.
no. And I'm
Yeah.
hearing how important that sort of time for integration is, but it
Yeah.
resonates with me as a counselor, the sense that we have the therapeutic hour, and that time space has its own intelligence, and
Mhm.
without even having to really pay attention to the clock,
Yeah.
the energy informs us when we're drawing to an end and when enough work has been done for that day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Yes, it's amazing actually, because I know when I started out, I was always worried that I was going to go on for too long, and I would sometimes, get to the hour and worry, and then you just notice that within the next 10 minutes, it was
yeah,
all kind of peaceful again. So yeah,
yeah.
it's amazing. So we are very, very guided.
Yeah, I'm hearing that. I'm hearing how well supported you are in this work, which then enables you to support others the way that you can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I know also that you work with Mama Cacao. And is that something that you came to before the family constellation work, or is that something that you you discovered afterwards?
Afterwards, actually, it was one of these events that come into your life and becomes so life changing. I had met on Facebook a Swedish artist called Tekla Utterström, who I had got to know just by writing to each other, and she came and visited once, and we were just getting to know each other, and she sent me a text to say, I am going to a women's convergence in Peru, would you like to come?
Wow.
And I was like, oh, wow, well, yes, I'd love to come, but the thought was terrifying because I'd never been out of Europe at that point. And she had been asked to go because she had painted four pictures of the elements which were going to be used on the main altar within this convergence. So the convergence was a week in a town called Pisac in the Sacred Valley in Peru. And there were 560 women there from 30 different countries. And
Wow.
so off I went, biggest adventure of my life. And it was amazing because I had always wanted to work shamanically, but I'd never found somebody that I felt I, it just didn't feel right. I knew I was waiting for something and I didn't want. So I was a novice when I arrived at this amazing convergence with all these women. And it was like coming home. You know, I can feel the tears welling up just thinking about it because we were actually outside on a football pitch, actually, and with the Andes all around us.
Wow.
And
That's
in the midst of this, there was a big fire, and we had 13 grandmothers from different countries who were with us around this fire. Most of them were from South American countries, but we had one from Spain, one from the US, a lady from Zimbabwe, a grandmother from Zimbabwe, and a grandmother from Australia, Aboriginal, and she was amazing. They were all amazing, and we spent 5 days in the company of the grandmothers and their wisdom, and there were 4 days that were allotted to the different elements: air, earth, water, and fire. And we were asked to wear particular colors for each day representing that. And on the fourth day, Air Day, we were all wearing white. And we led a peace march through the streets of Pisac, which was incredible. Just it was the most amazing energy. And I met people there. I met this wonderful Argentinian woman there who we couldn't even speak to each other. My Spanish is very, very bad, and her English was pretty well non-existent. But we became beloved sisters. And there was something about being in that connection with women, which was just something that I'd never really experienced before, not to that extent. And it completely changed my life. It was amazing. And after we had completed the course, and some of us, a small group of us, went to Machu Picchu, and we were there the very earliest in the morning. So the sun was just rising as we got there. And we knew that the grandmothers were going to be there, but we didn't really know when they would arrive. And so I was walking on my own, just walking around, and I came around a corner and my eyes met the smallest of the grandmothers. She was 90 years old, Peruvian. And there she was, Grandmother Maria, and she was chanting. And our eyes met, and I have never felt anything like it because I didn't know what was happening. But what was happening behind where she was standing, all the grandmothers were chanting prayers for all the women in the world who had ever been abused. And it was just the most phenomenal experience. So, from that experience, I stayed on for another 2 weeks. And during that time, I met a shaman who was from the area, and my friend Tekla and I went to this sacred lake, Kinsakocha, and we were led into a dispatchal ceremony. And a dispatchal ceremony is all about gratitude to Mother Earth, Pachamama. And so there we were. It was freezing cold. It had been really, really hot down in Pisac, and it was absolutely freezing. And it could have been Scotland. The only thing was that we had lots of llamas and alpacas around us.
Hmm.
But it was an incredible experience. And I thought, at last, I have come home. I found my home. I found my shamanic home. And after I came back from Peru, I was in contact with this lovely teacher, Purik Kotodante, and I asked if it would be possible to be able to work more with him, and he said yes, of course. And that's we're into our 5th year now, and I have been learning from him. He comes from a long line of a family who have been involved in the Andean culture, and he's teaching me all about what he knows and passing on the information, which is absolutely wonderful. And it does make me laugh a little bit, because there we sit on Messenger on Facebook, and he's in Peru, and sometimes he's in the mountains. And I love that we can do this. I love that. So, to answer your question about cacao, so when I was in Peru, I'd never even heard of it. And I could see there were always notes up telling us about ceremonies for this and that. And we didn't actually take part in anything while we were there. But shortly after I came back, a dear friend in Ireland had trained as a cacao facilitator, and she asked if I would like to join her ceremonies online. And I was not quite sure about it first. I loved it, but it didn't become part of my daily practice right away. But I recognized that there was something within cacao that could, I just want to say, hold my heart, because cacao as a plant medicine is a heart opener, and it gently and wisely guides you to let go of whatever you may be holding in your heart is causing you pain. And over time, I started to drink cacao on not on a daily basis. I used to keep it for weekends. It's like my special time, and I would have sometimes a little ceremony on my own, and other times I would just drink it without the added ceremonial dose, which is slightly more in that. But I realized that it was really leading me somewhere, and it was connecting me back in some way to Peru, and to that connection, to that home that I had left behind. And with time, I was offered a place on a course as in to train as the cacao facilitator, which I did online. Everyone else was in Ireland, and I was here in Scotland. And it was really special, because my teacher, Mandalay, had she knew nothing about cacao, but it has now become her life's work. She found out everything she could about it, and she worked in a women's cooperative in Guatemala, and also on a farm in Peru, with a family who had been working with cacao for um, for a long time. And she now she imports cacao from Guatemala and from Peru to Ireland, and then it comes to me from there. So I have now been working as a cacao facilitator for 2 years, maybe 3 years. I can't remember now. It seems time flies. And for me, it's become such a huge part of my life. Um, and it's something that if I can pass it on, then I have done something that I feel I have been meant to do. Sorry, I'm talking so much here, so I
No,
hope I
it's
haven't.
oh, Alison, I'm just sitting here sort of awestruck, just imagining and as if I'm sort of journeying alongside you. So please don't stop your own flow here. Just allow me just to acknowledge some of the beautiful experiences that you've very briefly named, but your journey to Peru with Tekla and the the women that you honored and celebrated with. I can feel my heart sort of beating faster with this energy that's rising in me at the thought of that, and to see that the oldest, smallest grandmother at Machu Picchu, and the singing, the chanting for every woman who has ever been abused. and the
Mm.
healing that they were supporting through those prayers. And then how just it you sound like you're on the aligned path. One thing led to another, and then you're down by the lake, and you're meeting your mentor, and you're discovering Mama Cacao, and yeah,
Yeah,
it's just it,
yeah. It
wow.
just overflowed. Yeah, it was, and I was so afraid of going because I'm quite a shy person, and I was going with somebody I didn't really know very well for 3 weeks. It was quite a thing to do,
Yeah,
and I kept asking people. I wanted somebody almost to say, "Oh no, don't go," and not one single person said that. And it was like, okay, I get
yeah,
the message. It'll be fine. And it was. My heart is in Peru a lot of the time.
I hear
I
that.
have been, yeah, I really, I feel that. And I felt that when I was there. It was like coming home, part of me. Many, many years ago, before I'd even kind of stepped onto my spiritual path, um, I watched a film called Out on a Limb, which was from the book by Shirley MacLaine. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No, I don't know
Um,
that one.
Shirley MacLaine has written quite a few spiritual books, but that was her first one, and it was made into a film, and she played the part of herself. And I remember watching it, and she went to Peru, and the experiences she had there were quite unusual. Um, and I remember being absolutely glued to the TV screen. I could not move away. And
Mm,
now, when I went to Peru, I realized why. Um, if you ask anyone in the Andes who have lived there, that's where their family comes from. They will tell you they come from the stars. And
yeah.
for me, that was just unbelievable to hear that, because within Andean shamanism, they work very much with the Pleiades, the
Hmm.
seven sisters. And by some strange coincidence, that was the only constellation I ever knew because my mother taught me it. And so once again, that connection was there from
Yes.
being a small child. So if you ever get the chance to see Out on a Limb, I mean, it's probably a bit dated now, but the book is still there, and it's really interesting her experiences in past lives and all sorts of things when she visits Peru. So Shirley MacLaine, the actress, I mean. So
Yeah.
yeah. So
Thank you for that recommendation. Again, I'm just hearing the threads that connect you to Peru.
mhm.
You know, just subtly throughout your life, I imagine, I guess.
Yeah,
And just,
yeah.
yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm. Little
And
hints here and there.
yeah, those little hints, exactly. The breadcrumbs, aren't they, sort of
Yeah,
guiding you back home? And it's like,
exactly.
and you've held space for me a couple of times now with Mama Cacao, and I have to say, I mean, it's so potent, and the way you hold space is beautiful. My from what I know of you, Alison, you really do embody that heart energy, and I feel very safely held in your presence. And I was really struck by, so when I drank the ceremonial cacao, how sort of simultaneously I felt my heartbeat quickening and at the same
Mhm.
time softening.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Um, yes, it there are there are two ways of drinking cacao. One is within a ceremony with a facilitator, and once you've learned to do that, you can do it on your own. But there is a larger amount in the ceremonial
Hmm.
cooking. Well, I'm saying ceremonial because what I would suggest, if you are going to try cacao, always look to make sure that it is ceremonial.
Okay.
Because there are some out there that are not, and that aren't as authentic as they could be. If it
Okay.
says Criolla, that is important because that is has to do with how long it is fermented, and Criolla means that it is really the right kind you want to go for. But always check that it is ceremonial cacao. But on a daily basis, you can use, it's like on a daily basis you might drink 28 grams, and when you're using it for ceremonial purposes it's 42 grams. But I would
Okay.
always suggest that to do that you would be with somebody who is a facilitator, because there are certain things you have to know. If you have a heart complaint, for example, just what you described there, you know, that your heart can start to beat um, more strongly. But I loved the way you said that you felt the gentleness at the same time,
Oh,
because
absolutely. And
hmm
I was so I was moved, and tears came as if from nowhere, but obviously from me, that just so struck by this quite quick softening. And it really struck me that actually how armored my heart is
hmm
in its, I'm not going to say natural state, but in its sort of day to day state, that there was such a profound shift, and I could feel the texture of my heart. I could feel
hmm
I could feel the musculature changing, and it's really given
right.
me a sense of, okay, this is a loving plant medicine that I personally need to explore. That
Mhm.
there's obviously been a hardening of my pericardial sac, that needs
Yeah.
to soften. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how would you recommend that people make it then? I imagine people listening, they might never have tried it before, and they're hearing you say look for ceremonial cacao. But
Mhm.
what do you do when you get it in your in your kitchen?
If you're making it yourself, say you would be making it just to drink
Hmm.
without going through the ceremony, you first of all you never use dairy,
Okay.
because that just destroys everything about the cacao. So never use dairy. So any kind of non-dairy. I tend to use oat milk, but you can use almond milk, you can use soya milk, or you can just use water. And so, first of all, what you do is you take your non-dairy and in a pan, and you add a little bit of salt. I put in salt, the chili pepper,
Hmm.
um, and then you can add anything you like. Normally, I have not anything you like, but any kind of spice that suits your palate. I like to have cinnamon. I add cardamom. Sometimes I put some ginger in, and you can add rose petals. You can do
Wow.
anything you like, really, whatever, just experiment with it. But these are ones that are generally used. So you would whisk the liquid,
Hmm.
and at the same time you will have shaved your cacao, because cacao comes in the cacao I get comes in big blocks. Once it's almost like an ingot, like a golden ingot. And so I shave that. It doesn't have to be in very, very, very fine pieces, because it melts, but not big blocks. You want to shave it. And then you add that to the herbs, and the herbs, sorry, the spices and the non-dairy, and you keep whisking it. But what you do before you start at all is to have your intention to connect to Mama Cacao, to the energy of this plant medicine, and to really give your gratitude for what you're about to receive. So whisking, generally, when they make cacao in ceremony in Peru, Guatemala, they will whisk for maybe an hour, if it's a large pot. But
Wow.
on a daily basis you don't have to do that, but it's the thought behind it as you whisk. And then you add um some kind of sweetener, but never sugar. So you add either honey or maple syrup, and then you whisk that in. If you want that, you don't always have to have that. It's just, it's a matter of taste, and you will find your own way to see what suits you. Um, and then before you drink it, just putting your cup, your mug to your heart, and just giving thanks before you even start to drink it. Just taking in the scent of this amazing drink. Cacao was a ceremonial drink where it goes as far back as the Mayan culture, and it was used in ceremony. It was associated with the goddess of abundance and fertility, but it was also associated with blood, the blood of the earth, Pachamama. So the honoring of it is so ancient and to me feels so right. And then you drink it.
The way you describe it, Alison, I would like to make some just now. It feels it's sensuous, and I'm hearing the importance of it's relational, isn't it? That
Mhm.
through your intention, how you create the cacao, really, it's about opening your heart to receive her as she
Mhm.
receives you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's such an abundant being.
Mm.
Um, I know you've seen my statue of Mama Cacao, and she
Yes,
is very abundant. She is. She's
she
beautiful.
she is.
I would,
Pretty.
yeah, I wish I had a picture to show you, but she is quite special. Yes.
Oh,
I was going to
thank you
add
for
something.
sharing it. Yes, of
And
course.
my mind's gone off on a tangent there. Sorry.
No, not at all. Well, if it comes back, then you just butt in. But
Mhm.
you know, I could speak about all of this forever. It's just so delicious. But you know, I've also got your book in front of me, and that's also a matter of intuition and heart, isn't it? And I just discovered that Alison is an author. I feel like I should have known that. And
Well,
and so you kindly sent me a copy of the book a few days ago, and I've started reading it. And wow, I wonder if you could maybe share a little bit of your process for those that are listening.
yes, thank you. And I'm glad it spoke to you. It's an interesting one. It started off a long time ago as I was really embarking on my spiritual path. And I had been meditating. And in my meditation, I just got the words, "In my heart of a thousand sorrows dwells a songbird whose name is love." And that blew me away. And I kept it. I'd written it down. I thought, oh goodness, what's this? And then it just stayed there. And then what happened afterwards? There were two events. One, I attended a past life workshop. And as part of the past life work we were doing, the facilitator asked me to kneel down in front of a man who I'd been sitting beside because I knew him. And he said, get down on your knees and look up into his face and ask him if he is the monk who raped you. And I was utterly stunned. And then I heard a voice, and I had no idea where this voice was coming from. And it was so loud and screaming, the shame, the shame. And then I realized it was me, but it wasn't me.
Hmm.
And it was quite traumatic. It was a difficult workshop. It was maybe not as well intended as I would have liked, let's put it that way. So I was left with this really. Um, but at the same time, I had been reading about inspirational writing, and I thought, well, I'll give that a go. Never done it before. So I went to bed with my notebook thinking, I'll just write that before I go to sleep. Nothing will happen anyway. And I started writing, and the words came. My name is Cecile de Martin, and I am 17 years old, and the year is 1457. I was like, what? And that's how it started. So the two events wove together into the start of this story that continued with me for many years. It was fascinating because it was almost as if our two lives had merged together. And the events that played out in my own life were almost being mirrored, although not as dramatically and terrifyingly as they were in the Middle Ages as this nun, young nun of 17 years old, and her story, not like that at all, but difficult at the same time. And so I would write some of it. I never knew exactly what was going to come onto the page. I kind of knew what where it was going, but I didn't know how. And it was always a surprise when I wrote down the words because they were so inspirational and they definitely did not come from me. And I was just fascinated by this process. And at times it would get quite difficult to write. I don't know if anyone else who's written inspirationally has found that like a channeled writing. And I
Hmm.
know at one point I stopped for a year and a half, literally stopped mid sentence
Wow.
and continued writing, and the sentence kept going, the voice kept speaking. And so I realized I had to honor this voice. I became
Hmm.
so attached to this other person. And I kept being told you should never get attached to past lives, which I do believe is the truth. But within this particular relationship between her and I knew her voice had to be heard. And
Yes.
so it went on for quite a lot of years, many years indeed. In fact, because when I started writing, it was before Google and everything, so we couldn't even, I didn't even know. I was writing down things that I couldn't actually discover immediately. I remember going to the library to find out about the Abbey that she talked about, which actually exists. So there were things like that. And then people who I knew, people who were close to me, remembered certain events and remembered the people. I
Wow.
have one of the characters, not even characters, I don't even like to use that word. One of the people in the story is the mother abbess who was in charge of the abbey when Cecile was a nun there. And she and I are very, very close friends, and we have found each other again. So whether that resonates with you or not, it feels like I want to say it because it's so important within the story.
Yes.
Um, I published, self-published with Amazon in 2016, but at the time it felt like it was so important that the book came out, but I didn't really push it. And I think now I understand why, because the timing was almost right, but not quite right. Because since then, there's been so much around the witch wound
Hmm.
and the pardoning of the witches. All of that has just become so big. And I feel that if I can in any way allow Cecile's voice to be heard, her story, her story of what happened to her, um, then I'll have done my work.
And she chose wisely when she chose you.
Well, thank you. I think that's so interesting because I was in awe of her for so long.
Mm.
Her words, I think. Um, so I didn't feel that I could possibly be the one to actually let her be heard.
Yeah. How was it? How did it feel to finish her story? Yeah.
Well, that was quite amusing, actually. I know it's not an amusing end, really, but I knew it was going to be traumatic, and that stopped me for a long time. I think was probably months knowing that I had to finish this story, but how was I going to do it? Because I could feel in my heart it was going to be really difficult. And I
Hmm.
spent that summer, I was helping some friends out in Sweden, and they had a small holding. So I was actually looking after geese and ducks. I was herding geese at the time. And so it was actually quite easy to write it because I'd write a few words and then I'd do something with the birds, and there were more animals there as well. And then I'd write it, and it felt so natural to be doing so that it didn't feel difficult to finish it. That might
Okay.
sound a bit mad, but it was the way it
No,
happened.
not at all. It sounds like even you intuitively knew that there was this particular place and space to be to complete the story. And
Mhm.
can I ask, are you still in contact with Cecile, or
Yeah,
is yeah?
yeah, yeah. She's there. She's there, and um, yeah, she is very much there. And if I sometimes think I would love to have met her. What an amazing person, such a young person with such incredible intuitive
Hmm.
capacity and the immense amount of love that
Yes.
she held in such an incredibly difficult situation. And if I had an ounce of that, I would be happy.
Well, you do have an ounce of that, Alison, and that's why you were able to hear her and to write her song.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So for anyone listening, A Songbird Whose Name is Love is the book, and I urge you to get a copy. It really is beautiful. Yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
oh, thank you, Alison. So we're coming to like the final sort of 10 minutes of the show, and yeah, gosh, I feel like we've gone around the world, haven't we?
Yes, we have, haven't we? Yeah.
Yeah, so you've met so many interesting people and you've got so much phenomenal learning and wisdom. And I'm curious, was there ever a piece of advice or something that you read or heard along the way that stayed with you that you might share with our listeners?
Well, I thought about that a lot, and there's so many little nuggets from here and there, but in the end, we come back to Peru. But this was actually not from Peru, but from Africa, because this was the grandmother from Zimbabwe who imparted these words of wisdom, and I'd just like to share them with you. And this is what she said: "We are all seeds of fire. Other people may try to put our fires out, but no one can put our fire out unless we let them. We should not steal fire from another, and we should not give away our fire. Be aware of what other fires you allow into your temple, your body. We are the sisters and brothers of the original fire of the stars, and we are here to bring forth light and life."
Whew. Wow.
Well, you can imagine when you're sitting out in with Andes round about you and somebody's telling you that, just how that feels when it goes into your heart.
Yes. Well, I can feel what it's doing to my heart just sitting in a room in Dundee. So, but what how poetic. And I could feel the fire within me, sort of aflame and really burning in resonance. That these are again words that are deeply familiar, but hearing them for
Um,
the first time.
yes, it's the sacredness of the fire and the
Yeah,
elements all around us, and how they're always there. They're always there. But it
yeah,
was just this incredible wisdom. I could have sat there for years and just listened.
yes, yeah. I imagine you're still there, some
I
part
am at
listening.
times.
Yeah,
Yes, I go there. I think I go there in my dreams as well.
yeah,
Um, and the little grandmother, I don't think she is with us any longer, but I do feel her. I do feel her strength and her character. And when I think about it, another thing when I was in Peru is the people I met and the friendliness and the joy that was there in such poverty.
yes.
It was just joyful. everything was joyful, even though they had nothing. It was amazing. It taught me so much.
Yeah. Well, I'm hearing you speak of abundance
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and yeah, their capacity to love and their connection to the stars, to the elements, to each other, and therefore could they be more rich?
Yes, exactly. And I think when you see the colors there as well, it's
Mm,
the that was one of the biggest things that I experienced was, oh my goodness, there was such a blast of colors. It was just incredible. And that is a heart opener in itself.
yeah, absolutely. Wow.
Mm.
And so, Alison, I know we've got a few minutes left, but I have to bring it in. You know, you've attended some inner dance sessions, and you come to online, and you've been to in person, and you know, I'm just curious how that ties in with all your other work. You know, it's
Yeah.
I imagine inner dance. Would you regard that as part of your sort of self care or your self
Oh,
development?
it's part of my life. Honestly, I know it hasn't been a part of my life for long, but I cannot tell you how much it has had an effect on me. And oh, it's amazing. The experiences, I think, the images that come as well are so amazing, but also it's the subtlety of it and how I've recognized that it reaches into those parts of you at times that you really don't want to look at, that you
Hmm.
really feel are too, no, I'm not, I'll just put that one aside for a while. And it's like it manages to get you to that place to be able to say, I'm brave enough now, without
Yes.
you even doing it. And unwinding, disentangling, whatever words you want to use, things in your life that you couldn't ever have believed would work out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's something about creating the optimal condition to self heal and to face your fears without being scared.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. And at times you are scared, and at times it can feel, because I didn't know what to expect the very first time with the soundscape. And it's like, oh my
yeah,
goodness, this
yeah,
is interesting. And at times, because I remember you saying as we started, some people have shouted, turn it off, or and I don't know more than that, but I was like, whoa, this is incredible. How can this work? How does it work? And then you just go, I'm just going to let it work. I'm
yeah,
going to let it take me to those places and give me those wonderful insights that I might not have been able to access otherwise.
yeah. So there's a big yes, isn't there? There's something about or surrendering to a very innate process. You know, a
Yes.
bit like what we need to do to be able to sleep and dream. And I know for many of us that's really difficult, you know, that we're so stressed and adrenalized and sleep is elusive. It's not something that we have a consistent relationship with, or if we do sleep, we don't go into those REM states. And for many people, sleep is it's not a place of rest and restoration and healing. So there's something for me about inner dance, how it helps people to remember how to do that. And in the dream space, everything is possible. A bit like
Yeah.
in the family constellation work that you're describing, that you can go to different dimensions
Mhm.
and you know where to direct the medicine.
Yes. Yes. So for me, it will always my life. I'm committed.
Well, that's wonderful. It's always lovely to have you there. And I know that
Okay.
also through the the Mama Cacao ceremonies that you work with music as well, and that's part of the supportive process when you go inward and you
Yeah.
bear witness to the medicine unfolding inside.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Music is very therapeutic, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, I suppose it's the song of the universe, isn't it? Music and
Yeah.
vibration, and it's her voice really, and yeah,
Yes.
so powerful, so powerful. Yeah. Anyway, we're just coming up to the final moments, Alison, and I would just like to thank you so much for sharing your time with with us, giving us a striking glimpse into some key moments in your life that clearly have changed and continue to vibrate for you. You
Mhm.
know, and I can't imagine anyone who's listening not feeling those vibrations too. It's palpable. And so thank you so much. Yeah, really just enjoyed this conversation immensely. And for anyone listening, you know, Alison's a phenomenal space holder and she has a website, and you can contact her directly through there if you're interested in attending an in person or an online Mama Cacao ceremony or family constellation workshop. And her book's also available on Amazon. And can you buy it through your website too, Alison?
Um, I have, I don't have so many left now, so it's best to go through
Yeah,
Amazon. That's the best way to do it. Yeah, but you're
wonderful.
there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Caroline. That's been amazing.
Ah,
Just chatting to you just lifts my heart. So
ah,
thank you.
lovely. Well, thank you so much. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish up the show officially, and then I'll switch the recording off. And if you just hold on for another second, then we can just say our goodbyes. Okay.
Okay, thank
Lovely. So, anyway, everybody, thank you so much for listening to the phenomenal journey that Alison Strandberg took us on. Again, I cannot emphasize highly enough how amazing she is, and be curious enough to seek her out in your own way. And yeah, it's been another epic show. Next week, I'll be speaking with Ahilan Veltenginger, who is a co developer of Be Light, which is a light and sound app, which has changed my life and is a phenomenal piece of technology. So, really, conversation there. But until then, dear hearts, much love to you all and have a great week. Take care. Bye bye.